Welcome back to You Can here on Heise TV. Make sure you check out the first part of this switch panel install before watching this video. Now back to Aaron.
Okay, now we've pulled our wire through the firewall, we're going to extend this cable all the way over the back side here, using some cable ties along the way to hold it secure. And then just take your side cutters. And there we go. We'll do the same on the other side. Today we're going to go over how to install a T-harness. So what this T-harness does is it gives you all of your lighting output triggers. So turn signal, DRL, and parking light. We're going to do it on the driver's side here since it's the easiest to photograph. It's from the top. Passenger side isn't that bad either. Just you have to reach it from the bottom. So to install it, you're going to reach under your fender, pull off the quick connect, and you'll be able to see the harness. Now to unclip this harness, take a look down, there's a little red tab that you got to pull up that unlocks it. To connect up your cable, all you have to do is open this harness, and you're going to see that the ends match. So just match those up. Plug in the factory side. So now that I got that lined up, clip it in, lock your harness back down. And then we're going to do the same thing on the firewall. And lock that back down. And as you'll see, you have access to all of your triggers. So we've already tied these to the firewall, and we need to make our connection to the controller connection. And that is just done using the round barrels. There's a little arrow on each side of the cable. So you line that up, arrow to arrow, shove it in the hole, take your end cap, screw that in securely. And then what this is going to allow you to do is get to these wires that go behind the fuse box to start pulling it over to where we're ultimately going to mount our controller, which we've already got set up here. So the controller is going to mount roughly in this location right here. This piece comes with the controller. Now what we've done to mount our circuit breaker is we made an ABS panel, link in the description. It's also on the website for the controller. All you have to do is get some plastic. You can make this out of metal, whichever is easiest for you. Cut that template out, make your own template if you want. But it just gives us a nice clean way of mounting up our circuit breaker with the SWP8 switch. And that goes roughly here. The next part of this install is going to be figuring out your fused power and your constant power to route into your switch box here. Okay, so now to give this thing switch power, we're going to use what's called a fuse takeoff. And we're going to go under our fuse box here, and we're going to locate fuse F23. So for us, that's right here. But before we do all that, we're going to have to clearance our lid here for this wire that has to come out of it. So to do that, again, it's not rocket science. We're just going to set this down about where we want that wire to come out. And then we're going to lay the fuse box back on top. And you'll see where that wire is sitting. We're just going to mark that hole right here. So now what we're going to do is take our Dremel and put just a little slice about the size, a 1/4 inch, just about, of that wire through the fuse box so it doesn't chafe every time you have to take the box on or off. All right, so we're at the bench, and we're going to do this kind of 2 steps. I'm going to drill a pilot hole at the top. That way it's kind of a clean ending, if you will, for a Dremel, because then we're just the thickness of this line on both sides so that wire doesn't chafe. But before we can do that, safety man rules. Got to put on your safety glasses, and we're going to dive right in. So here we go. We're going to start with our pilot hole, and just like with everything we've been doing, just give that a couple of spins before you drill it through. That way it doesn't walk too badly on you. Then with our Dremel, it's plastic, so don't have it turned up to 30, but somewhere in the middle should do fine for cutting this. And just take your fingernail and clean that over. All right, so we're gonna head back over to the Jeep and get all of this hooked up. Using the fuse puller that comes in your Jeep, right? We're gonna look for F43. It's a 20 amp fuse. We're just gonna grab it right here. Pull that up. Now with our particular fuse piece, we're gonna put the factory fuse in the bottom hole. All right, so before you put your lid on, put your little fuse removal tool back in, line up your wire with your slot that you've cut, and lock it in place, just like that. Then what you want to do is route this wire appropriately. So it's going to go under, and it's going to secure with our other wires that we have for the illumination circuit. So the next step is going to be to route our ground wire for the SWP8 switch. We're just going to be using one of these factory grounding points right here. It takes a 10mm socket to pop that off, and we're going to do that right this second. So with our power wires, they are kind of a heavier gauge. So you want to think about where you want these to end up before you go locking them down to their location. So for us, we're going to have this actually pointing towards the front of the Jeep, just like that. Then we're going to put the screw. Now this just being a ground wire, we can put this off to the side, not having to worry about it sparking with anybody. This is our ignition source. This is only live when the vehicle's on, and same for our parking wire, or illumination wire. Grabbing our handy dandy instruction book here for our SWP8 switch. We've got 3 wires we need to worry about, which is yellow, red, and a white. The red for this is going to be our constant wire, or constant power source. So this is always on circuit. This is something you can easily put to your fuse block. Just put a little ring terminal on it or something to that effect. And these two are the ones that we're going to hook up to the wires that we just pulled. So yellow is going to be for our ignition, white is for our illumination. We're just going to be using butt connectors for this and some heat shrink. So we're going to go ahead and strip and crimp the ends that go to the SWP8 first. So this is kind of a pro tip, using the heat shrink. You don't have to, but it's going to make it a more weatherproof connection, more reliable connection going into the future, and it makes it look better. It's got some aesthetics to it as well. So we're just going to slip that over the connection. All right, now we certainly don't need these wires to be this long, so kind of loosely gather up your wire here so you can guesstimate about what you're going to need. So our bracket is going to live in this location here, so we can shore these wires up to about right here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it. All right, so now once you've got all your wires crimped together that you need for now, you're gonna pull that heat shrink back over them. Now the great thing about heat shrink is it can be done by a number of things. You can use a specialty tool, hair dryer, hot gun, anything like that, but not everybody's gonna have that. But most people will have access to a grill lighter or something to that effect. And what we're gonna do is just carefully get underneath of them. All right, so these will be a little warm after you've shrunk the tubing. So let that set for a few moments. Then what you're gonna wanna do is restage because we're gonna start getting our bracket in place with the power wires, and you definitely want to make those heavy connections at the very last. All right, so for this part of your install, you're going to be taking your bracket up and down a few times because you're mounting wires, you have to size them and dress them at the same time. So to keep this metal bracket from scratching your paint, put a little green tape down. If you got blue, painter's tape, even masking tape, anything that's just going to help you keep from damaging your paint is not a bad idea. All right. So we got two sets of wires that we got to dress first that go to your controller. Both of these plug in independent places. I'm going to route through these right here, these notches, these ovals, if you will. All right, so we're just going to kind of tentatively set everything in place. And again, you're going to end up cutting these, clips because you want to dress these wires together. So on this bracket, you're going to want to route these wires through this side. Flip your bracket up and plug them into their respective locations. Next step is that ground wire that you put in earlier. We're going to want to grab this. Pull it under, and you want to keep it in that side as well. Unscrew it from the tab. All right, nice and secure. So at this point, you can take a moment and actually go through and start to dress your wires, making sure everything is the length that you want it, so you don't have this spaghetti's nest hanging out underneath. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start to dress our wire. This is our constant wire. This guy needs to remain out so we can connect it to the circuit breaker later. We're doing it in this rotation as well because we do have a circuit breaker that keeps that switch open and not live for us. If you didn't have a circuit breaker in place or a fuse, power wire is generally the positive wire. That's the first one you want to hook up, then ground would be second. But we're doing it this way since we got this guy open and reset right now. Now once you got those dressed to the way you feel is okay, we're gonna push these down, and we need to keep this constant wire up. And before we tighten down this 10 mil connection, we're gonna place this right here. All right, with that done, we're down to our last run. That's your power wire here. And to start this, we're going to route it under our fuse box so you can easily grab it over here. Again, it's not connected to the battery. And in these JLJTs, it does have 2 batteries in it, one for the interior, one for the exterior. So let's grab our 10 mil again, loosen up this nut. The factory, right off the battery tray, if you can see it here, gives you a nice mounting point for your zip tie. So we're going to route the wire under the battery tray, secure it to this power wire right here, that way it's locked in. All right, and again with our 10 mil, loosen up this bolt right here. And we're gonna lay it there. Fits like a glove. When you are messing with your battery connections, make sure that you are steering clear of any grounding points because this can ground out and spark if you're not careful. And the safety man will be happy because you're not wearing your ring. So we're gonna pull this cover back up. Set it back in place. We're gonna reset this. It's on. So now all you gotta do is pull your tape. Find your factory bolts and where we want to mount it. And zip those right on down. And with that, your SWP8 is installed.
That looks great, Aaron. It's early on in our Jeep Wrangler project build, but that's the perfect time to add a system like this. It's gonna make everything we add next easier to install and easier to control. You should consider making the HE-SWP8 the backbone of your next build.
It's great to have you back for another episode of You Can here on Heise TV. Remember, you can with Heise. If you like the show, subscribe, smash that like button, ring that notification bell so you never miss a moment of Heise TV. Until next time.